Streaming services are on the rise, and brick-and-mortar video stores are a thing of the past. We have lost that experience of wandering the aisles and stumbling upon a film we've never heard of. We have replaced the familiar face behind the video store counter with an algorithm to recommend films. With more and more content available, it's harder to know what's worth watching and what might be a waste of your time. There are many hidden gems out there waiting to be discovered, and we want to help you find them. This is Trailer Rewind, a podcast where we discuss and review recently forgotten or overlooked films that are now available to stream at home.
Captain's log. Final entry. Spock and I are the sole survivors. Enterprise, are you there?
Morning, Wendy.
Good morning, Scotty.
Can we go over your everyday schedule?
Wake up, go to work.
Welcome to Cinnabon. Would you like a Cinnabon?
How's your script coming?
I just wrote a story where Spock travels to Deep Space Nine.
That sounds awesome.
3 p.m., take Pete for a walk. 6 p.m., watch Star Trek before I go to bed.
Send in your script highlighting the best of the Star Trek universe.
Next week, your sister's coming.
There's a Star Trek script writing contest. We can go to the post office, and then I can go home with you. Can you please tell Audrey that I'm ready to go home now?
Please stand by. Breathe.
Your completed script must be received by February 16th.
Where are you going? Los Angeles. Bus driver, my friend needs to pee. Don't do it, Pete!
This is what happens when you pee on the bus.
In today's episode, we are discussing Please Stand By. Today is May 25th, and Please Stand By is available on Hulu and Canopy. And for those of you...
I bet you watched it on Canopy, right?
No, I've got my Hulu subscription, so...
But you're supposed to be supporting Canopy.
Well, here's the thing with Canopy. Because my library subscription gets me in there, I only have a certain number of credits, and I know it's
you got to save it.
It's the end of the month.
Sure.
I've got like a week left in the month, and I still have all my credits, but I never know.
You're our Canopy guy. I want to spread the good word.
Yeah, but I sometimes just think I want to save those credits. Am I going to use all 12 of them in the next week? Probably not. But so when it's available on Hulu, I feel like, well, this justifies my subscription. One more thing that I'm watching on Hulu since I'm paying for it. But for those of you that have a, in the United States, have a public library account that is linked to Canopy, you can check it out there. So this one had a very interesting release approach. This was 2018, so pre-pandemic, but it was one of those smaller films that was released into theaters and on-demand video, so that day and date release on January 26, 2018. It had a really, really small theatrical release, only 7 screens, and was in theaters for only a month. During that month, it made less than $10,000. So I think they just counted on people, renting it on, video on demand. Internationally, it did much better. It made $396,000. The vast majority of it was from South Korea, where Please Stand By made $325,393.
Why South Korea, I wonder? That's
I don't know if it's the Star Trek thing that, did it. It's something about the structure of the story, but it made $149,000 of that on the 325 screens during opening weekend of June 1st, 2018 in South Korea. And then became available on Blu-ray and digital platforms on May 1st, 2018. So this is one that did not really find an audience here. Clearly, something in South Korea, 325 screens, makes sense. United States, 7 screens. So they went with an international approach for that. That, gets to the question of, this is a small film. Who is this for? What did we think about this? The basis of it is really, there's a whole core of this that's related to Star Trek. And I think maybe that's the first question, do you think you really need to be familiar with Star Trek to connect with and enjoy this film?
I don't think so. I think, there's one part where it becomes super helpful to just have a sort of feel-good moment in it. But other than that, it doesn't, it basically actually gives you an audience surrogate for someone who doesn't know about Star Trek. So I don't think you need to know ahead of time, but to take the drama or to take the story to an additional level, you will have a nice additional core of information about what autism is and how the nature of autism can be represented in characters in the world, with an understanding about Star Trek. And so that aided me a little bit, but I don't think that's necessary, because I think the heart of this film is really the drama that's involved with caretaking or caregiving and just everything that is involved in this autistic girl's life. So I think I don't think you need to. So I'll just leave it at that.
Because that was one of the things that actually was an interest point to me when I was looking through things to decide what to put in Trailer Rewind. I thought, okay, Dakota Fanning, we haven't seen her in a while. We've got Toni Collette as well, and we've got a Star Trek theme to it. So I thought, okay, I'm a Trekkie. I'm a fan of Star Trek. What role does this play? And I was really pleased to see that. If you're a Star Trek fan, sure, you're going to connect with it. You're going to get references. But as you said, they do a good job of setting up a character that, Toni Collette's character, who has no clue what Star Trek is. So, she's, her son explains.
Coincidentally named Scotty, which is actually a really nice little tidbit to Star Trek. Yes. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the film.
So anything that's, I think you get the general gist of it. What are tribbles? That gets explained to her. But it is really, the main character, Wendy, her story about Kirk and Spock. I think those are characters that in general people know a few things about them, but it does explain the basics of that, of what a Vulcan is, the whole disconnection from emotions. And I think that plays a nice way to connect things for Wendy, our main character, of writing a script about a character, Spock, who, again, that whole split between human and Vulcan and the emotional side, and how does he deal with feelings and all those struggles, something that she really connects to. But again, it's not anything that you need to do your research or have sat through any Star Trek movies prior. I think it gives everything there. So then, is this, as you said about, caregiving of an adult, that's, a good chunk of this. So that is that something that you think that an audience member needs to have a connection with, to be able to relate to really get invested in this story?
Well, that's a big part of my life. I had a long period where, I shouldn't say a long period. I had a number of years where I was a caregiver as an adult. And I think, again, I don't think you need it necessarily, because I think a lot of it is inferred. But for those of us who, I'm going to get emotional even just talking about it. But for those of us who have dealt with the idea of how to have a life and also care for someone who needs 24-hour care and that you love, and how to etch your way out of that, this movie becomes very, very powerful in that way. And that, for me, it hit me right in the feels the whole way. I had lots and lots of emotional moments throughout this film because of that connection. So I would recommend it for anyone who is a caretaker, caregiver in any sort of way. But again, I don't think it's necessary, because if you are interested in that, or you're interested in the drama that surrounds, whether it's Wendy's condition or anything it related to this, I think it's going to be a powerful movie for you either way. But again, that's just one of those added pieces that's gonna stack up for you if you watch it and you are a caregiver.
Yeah, I felt that it's really Wendy's story, sort of her journey, but the inciting incident, the connections, that whole relationship with her sister, as and Scotty, as Wendy being in the home and trying to develop that independence, being a part of it. I felt that it's something that, not having been in that situation, it's something that I felt like made sense. I could relate to that. But I think clearly, yes, people that have had that experience will connect with this in a way that is meaningful to them. But
it was huge for me.
But otherwise, this is pretty much just a straight drama. I guess I'd maybe put it sort of in the road trip category, because we've got a character going on a journey. That's set up from the beginning.
And I know this wasn't part of the series with Peanut Butter Falcon, but it actually backs up Peanut Butter Falcon in a really interesting way when you think about the sort of where I saw that was a little bit more whimsical. This one is a little bit more serious, but other than that, there is a nice bridge between the two of these about freedom and the way to treat individuals that are dealing and growing through their different challenges. So.
Yeah, it's something I don't think I intentionally planned, but just sort of felt like, this is a follow-up feature that just builds off of that. I thought we're going to touch on some similar themes here. So where did this one fall in terms of your overall ranking and ratings? How did you feel about Please Stand By.
Yeah, so it jumped up to a pretty high place for me because it was so effective dramatically, and that is something that's really big to me. I also think the execution of the film was pretty great, and we're going to talk about that in the different ways. It was very effective in the way that they rolled out the story and the way that they depicted it on camera. So for me, I gave it 3.5 stars and a like. On Flickchart, it's in a really weird place. Like usually I can have stories about why it feels like it's sitting there, but it's at 104 out of 255 for me, and that's just below Doctor Strange and just above Solo, a Star Wars story. So I don't know if I'm how I feel about that, because it's nothing like either of those films. So I don't know exactly why it sits there, but that feels high to me based on everything we just talked about its release schedule and how much money it made and how it's generally a smaller type of a film. But it really worked for me. The story was very effective, very emotional. It was a tearjerker when I was happy with having a tearjerker. So it's a very positive film for me. How about you?
Yeah, I came in at 3.5 stars and a like also with this one. So on my Flickchart, it came in at 325 out of 730. So again, I think we're both putting it just slightly above that halfway point. And I think that the challenge is this is one of those films, again, coming in at 3.5 stars where, yeah, it's an entertaining film. It's solid. It does what it needs to very well, but there's nothing that to me elevates it into that upper tier. So it does put it in sort of an odd spot. You end up in that middle ground of things. For me, it ended up just above John Frankenheimer's film Seconds that Pete and Andy talked about in the main show.
Okay.
And then just below it, and I typically don't normally rank and rate short films, but Wes Anderson did a little short film called Hotel Chevalier, which is sort of the prologue to the Darjeeling Limited. And so when I purchased that digitally, it came packaged with the short. So it's in this weird spot right in there between these two films. So right about 55%. If I go a little bit higher than Hotel Chevalier, I get the recent documentary, My Octopus Teacher, that was nominated for Oscars, for a Best Documentary Oscar. And then just below Seconds is The Hummingbird Project that we just talked about, recently. So it's in that middle-ish ground where I feel comfortable. It's in a mix of a lot of things, but again, one that I really enjoyed, and I'd say, yeah, that's probably where it fits. When I rank it. So it has a weighted average review on Letterboxd of 3.2, and over at IMDb
that's close to what we did.
It has a ranking of 6.7 over at IMDb. So again, right in that range of this is a film that I think is definitely worth watching. And listeners, if you think this is your kind of film and don't want anything spoiled, this is your chance to pause the podcast and check out Please Stand By on Hulu and Canopy. We're going to jump into the story here, JJ, but the first thing I want to touch on is, so this is the second film that we've talked about recently that's adapted from a play. The last one was way back, a few episodes ago, we talked about Loose, which was also adapted from a play.
Okay.
And again, there was nothing in Loose that let on that it was adapted from a play because you're in various locations. This one also, and I found out it was adapted from a play. This is a whole road trip movie. So it doesn't have that sense of we're going to confine characters to a small room that, single setting. It is a, film that covers a lot of territory.
I can see it more than Loose, though. I can see it more where you can float some backgrounds and as they're on the road and stuff like this. One of the thing that I didn't know this until you told me right now. So I will say I wouldn't have guessed that it was adapted from a play, but one of my very few complaints about the film is that I don't like the title. And Please Stand By is the convention to calm Wendy down when she's having tantrums. And that becomes the title here. But now when you say that it's adapted from a play, I don't know if the play is by the same title, but it sounds like that's something that would be held by the play and something that they would do on stage in a demonstrative way about what was happening. So then that makes me feel like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense if they pulled that from the play. Because I don't really I feel like there's so many different things you could point to as a title for this film. Please Stand By doesn't really work and doesn't really communicate anything about what's happening in the film.
No, it doesn't. It's an odd title, but when you get to that moment in the story, I'm like, oh, okay, now I see why that's the title. It's again, coming from the play, you can see how that may be a key piece. We only get it in one. Well, no, we get it in a couple points because it is when Wendy's sort of having her moment and Scotty is calming her down. But we also see Wendy use that herself to sort of self-soothe when she's worked up about, get whether she's going to make the deadline for delivering her script. Right. She uses that as that sort of self-soothing technique. So that is, could there be a better title? Yeah, I don't know. But it made sense to me once we got to those points. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I figured, does that have to do with the fact that she is writing a script for Star Trek, that she's somebody that's fascinated with TV? Is that what the connection is? And it doesn't get into it. It doesn't explain why that phrase is used, but clearly I think that's something that either was in the play and got cut, or is just something that we're to sort of piece together as an audience, because as we early on in the story, we get sort of establishing Wendy's world, what her daily routine is, because as we are introduced to her and Scotty asks her to, what is, let's review your daily schedule. And Wendy walks us through sort of her daily routine. We get her, routine with her sweaters, different colors for different days, her process of all the things that she needs to do to get herself functioning in her day and to work.
Well, and used really well, too. I want to mention this now because it makes sense in the teaching us of the way her routine with her sweaters, when she has the evolution of the character and we come around to the end. This is really kind of a first spoiler where she's starting to find some independence. She has a new sweater that we hadn't been introduced during the routine earlier, right? She didn't have stripes in the earlier scene, but then she does when she finally is given the freedom to come and actually meet her niece, which I think is really one of those beautiful takebacks that they don't explain to you in the story. One of my favorite things about this movie is that they don't feel they need to spoon feed you information about the character's development. They show you, they don't tell you.
Yes, exactly. It was something that I noted as well, because she explains different colors for the days of the week, and one of the days is polka dots. But yes, at the end we see her with the stripes. The other thing that I noticed when we see her going through is how they transition from day to day. We see her in her daily routine of she puts the sweater on, but as she's putting the sweater on, she says, Monday is this color, Tuesday is this color, and the sweaters change colors, but it's all sort of one continuous process. So as we do the cut from, she's putting the sweater over her head, it's one color. Then when she pulls it over her head, it's a different color. She gets it, she's pulling it down, it's another day, it's a different color. So you get the continuity of her movement, but the colors are changing. So you get that sense of sequence. Interesting
and efficient storytelling. And they use that, with, again, they use the film medium as an art here. And I love that kind of stuff. We need to see more of that in movies.
Yeah. So we get introduced to Wendy early on. We get a sense of what her routine is, what her place is in the world, that she's got a very small box that she lives in. She, there's a street that she cannot cross on her way to work. She is forbidden from crossing Market Street. Exactly. So that's
under no circumstances.
Under no circumstances at all. And that will become important later on. But so then we get introduced to Wendy's sister, Audrey, and her husband and their daughter. And this is where I was trying to get a sense of where are we going? We get a sense that, Wendy has this, script that she's going to work on that, she wants to submit because she's a Star Trek fan, all of that. And I thought, okay, where is this story going? And that's when Audrey comes to visit. And Scotty has hinted that your sister's coming to visit. But this is when Audrey shows up at the home, we really get sort of where the story is going to go, or what Wendy's expectations are. We get a sense of, yes, Wendy's frustrated by living, in the home. Again, something similar to Peanut Butter Falcon, of a person that feels that they are capable of functioning in the world and being told, no, you have to live in this small little box. And when Audrey, says to Wendy, no, you can't come home with me. You can't help take care of the baby. You're not able to do these things. Wendy has her meltdown. And I thought, okay, that gives us the conflict. We, get the sense of Audrey's exhaustion, her inability to take on another responsibility. She's got her husband, she's married, she's got an infant at home. There's a lot for her. She can't take on this additional burden of Wendy, whereas Wendy has felt she's made all this progress and can move out of the home and go back home to live with her sister. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. We get the dynamic between the two. But this is where the story really kicks into gear, because that is Wendy has her whole plan of, I'm going to go home with Audrey, and on the way, we're going to stop at the post office to mail her script so that it gets there by the deadline. She has her meltdown, all that, she's alone in her room, sort of being reclusive, not engaging with anyone. And then she realizes, oh no, tomorrow is Sunday and the following day is a Monday and the deadline is on Tuesday. So there's no way for her to mail in her script, her Star Trek script for the competition. So this incites the whole journey of, I have got to go and deliver the script to Paramount Pictures. And so she figures out her plan.
Put on an outfit. Monday, orange. Tuesday, lavender. Wednesday, blue. Thursday, dots. Friday, yellow. Saturday, purple. Sunday is red. Go into the kitchen.
I could see sort of the structure of the plot of, okay, why do we need Wendy to become independent? Why do we need her to go on this road trip? Well, we're going to build in the incident with her sister. So we've got, no, Wendy, you can't. So now we've got dual purposes of, I'm going to deliver the script and I'm going to show everybody that I can do this on my own. I can get out into the world to do this.
Did you feel like that was what was going on there? Because I didn't. I was all on the script idea.
There was...
I don't think she would have left. I didn't get enough of the Peanut Butter Falcon part of it where I can do this. I thought it was more so triggered by that she needed... That the Star Trek was actually her key to independence, not that she was independent enough to get the Star Trek. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I will say, at the beginning, yes, I agree with you. It's all about... I have to deliver the script, because the key to the script is if she wins, she's got $100,000 and she can help out. So she's sort of financially able to support herself and provide and not be a burden on her sister. But there is a point along the journey where I think there is a pivot to that. I mean, first she has to take the steps of, she's got to cross Market Street. So that's the first sort of violation of the rules that she's going to take, is she's not allowed to, and she's going to go across Market Street to get to the bus that she needs to get to. But later on, there is a point where she is at a payphone outside and she's going through her little notebook that has all her rules, and there's the picture of her niece, and there's also a card that says, if I get lost, call 911 and someone will help me. And she discards that card, and for me that is the shift for her of, I can take care of myself now.
I love that that's the way you interpreted that. I didn't even get that when she did that. I thought it was petulant and in the purpose of her pursuit, but that is a great way to look at that. That now, because literally I think what the card says, call 911 and someone will help you. And she evaluates it next to the picture of Ruby, her niece, and she says, no, I don't need help. I can do this. That's so smart. I'm really glad that you interpreted it that way. That's so much cooler than what I saw in it. I'm very serious. No. I think I like that idea. I want to go with that.
Along the way, she's got some barriers along her way. So her first is she gets on the bus, and to step on the bus, she sees that, no pets allowed on the bus. So she's got to take Pete, her tiny little dog, and stuff him down in the bag and tell Pete to be quiet. And of course, it's a long ride where they're going, and Pete has a tiny, tiny bladder, and he's a tiny dog. He's a tiny dog, and that's going to get them both ejected off of the bus. She decides she's going to walk. She meets a nice young woman who's got a baby, and they're heading to LA as well, and maybe they can take her and help her along her way. And when he goes to the restroom, the woman steals all of her money, so she's got no money left. She needs food, stops at a convenience store, and the clerk there tells her that the bag of candy bars, it's $1 per candy bar, so it's going to be $18 for the little bag of whatever Snickers that it is. And he is quickly shut down by Marla Gibbs, who people may remember from
Marla Gibbs. I love it.
From the Jeffersons. And there's a nice moment because she has a son that she says is similar to Wendy, and they have a nice little conversation about that. And then we get into the one quibble I have with this movie, which is that clearly Wendy's stuck out in the middle of nowhere. She needs to get someplace else. And so this woman says, well, why don't you come back with me?
Ride with us.
Come with us. So they get on the little bus shuttle for Shell Creek Retirement Village. And when they get on the bus, it's still sunlight is out. The sun, it may be setting. Okay, I can give them that. And then they're on the road and they're talking and they're talking and they're talking. And a lot of time seems to pass. And I thought, how far away from this retirement village is this little shuttle bus taking people to this little town? And I thought, okay, I can deal with that. And then we get the, reveal that the bus driver, who's maybe one of the residents of the retirement village at all,
must be,
is falling asleep at the wheel. Falls asleep at the wheel, and then they have a little collision with another vehicle, and Wendy ends up in the hospital with a concussion.
So everything surrounding the retirement village bus is kind of, it's a real reach, because honestly, then she ends up in the hospital, but what happened to all the other people in the bus? And why are they all separated and we never see them again?
Right.
Like that's like, I get it. It needs to be done. But the same could be said about, like, why didn't she shut the door behind her so the dog didn't have to come with? Then she would have been on the first bus and made it the whole way the first time on her own.
Oh, sure.
Like simple little things. She's autistic. Right. She has a routine. Right. Maybe she's breaking it. I mean, you can make apologies for all this, but a lot of things were done in service of the crises in the story. And I totally get your quibbles there. That makes sense.
But that gets us to the hospital. And for me, I thought, we see Wendy's cleverness at this point in terms of problem solving and her plan to escape from the hospital, which is she's getting moved to a different ward. She's been separated from Pete. She knows she still has this deadline she needs to meet. And so as she's being rolled out on the gurney to the other ward, she demands, I have to go to the restroom. And so clever. I've never seen it before in a film, and maybe, I'm just naive, but she opens the window but hides in the little cupboard area under the sink. So when the orderly or, nurses, comes in, sees the open window, assumes she's bolted out the window, so that when everybody leaves to chase after her, she can get out of the restroom, change her clothes.
Yes, that is clever. I want to get, but totally unrealistic when thinking about a hospital.
Yes. If
it is, I think that's a code. Is that a code blue? Yeah. If that happens, yes, a lot of people go and everybody tries to help, but they don't completely abandon a nurse's station, giving people time to do the escape. So again, clever, but not realistic.
But at this point, she then, in her attempt to escape, with her 500-page script that she carries with her in her backpack that's half open, that isn't in an envelope or held together by a binder clip, gets bumped out of her arms and scattered to the wind. So she go ahead.
I like how they use that.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, and for both an emotional kick later in the film when, it's incomplete, and how she tries to finish writing, but she's still some 100 pages short. And then, but they found the script. That stuff, I liked that.
Yes.
Again, when these unrealistic things happened, that it didn't bother me, because those twists and turns were facilitating the greater dramatic pieces of the story.
Yes. And as we get the clips of her script and we get her the scenes that she is imagining with Kirk and Spock, we get a little bit more of sort of her personal reflection, insights into herself or her relationship. And it's later on, after, we see the connection that she's making between a relationship between Kirk and Spock and herself and her sister, which for me was really powerful reveal of, Wendy identifying with the Spock character, her sister as Kirk. Again, you don't have to know a whole lot about those characters. It spells it out, but it was one of those moments where I thought, okay, there's a lot of thoughtfulness going on into the character of Wendy. This isn't just a play a character as a trope of autism, but really some insights into her self-reflection as she's going on this journey to, again, accomplish her mission, but also as she's learning to grow and exert her independence. It does get very geeky as she has escaped from the hospital. She's out on the streets, and they're searching for her, and we get a pair of cops on the street that see her, and one of them happens to be played by Patton Oswalt, who everybody knows is sci-fi geek fan, right?
I thought it was perfect. You call it geeky. And I didn't know Patton Oswalt was that far. I mean, yes, he's probably known for that, but I didn't know that was his thing. But then they don't, this is again, the beautiful part of the story is that they don't tell you, they just show you. And Patton Oswalt, because his character is going to be as much of a sci-fi fan as the actor is, he just knows enough about this missing person that he starts speaking to her in Klingon.
Yes.
And it is beautiful because he does it with and they never tell us that she knows that. We just know that she's that well read on Star Trek. And then they start communicating in Klingon, and it is gorgeous. It is uplifting. It is wonderful. And that's that piece that I was talking about in the pre-show, where if you don't know what Klingon means, if you don't know that Klingon is a thing, then this might be a little bit of a what's going on here thing. But they have an audience surrogate as his partner. Like, I didn't know you meant this, and all this, this kind of thing. So I loved it. Some people are not going to like it, but I loved that connection in the story.
Well, the other bit of Star Trek sort of Easter eggs is that her sister, Audrey, is played by Alice Eve, who was in Star Trek Into Darkness, which is one of the newer.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
She is into that. Yes. So, I didn't think about that.
I don't know if you consider that stunt casting or not.
No, not in this case.
It's just one of those coincidences. So, it's a very sweet moment.
If they would have broke the fourth wall and did this whole meta thing of like, I wrote you into the script in this character that is your character from another movie that has nothing to do with this universe, then maybe it would be stunt casting, but I don't think so. The police officer interacting with her in Klingon, it's not just that he knows Klingon, but how to de-escalate a situation of a person that is feeling, that is a flight risk, that is feeling isolated and scared, and being able to talk her down, to make that common connection of safety, was a beautiful moment. She gets to the police. She's taken into custody. Sister and Scotty arrive. They're able to then take her to Paramount Pictures, where she can, deliver her script. And again, we get. Can you just walk on the Paramount Pictures lot? No, not really. If there's a contest, is the guy... She pulled the Pee Wee Herman where he goes with the tour and then walks away. Right. Yeah, and not really.
And is the mailroom guy going to really say, I'm sorry, you can't hand deliver this, it has to be, postmarked? Maybe.
That I almost believe. Yeah. From my years in LA, that doesn't surprise me. What I really liked with that scene is when she gives the, don't you know who I am? Right. And he immediately, in an LA attitude, chuckles like, how is this line going to do anything? But then she uses it to her advantage. And again, they could still figure out which one is hers in the bin. Right. It's not going to be an issue, but it was just clever for the use of the story. So I was happy with it.
Yes. And so then she's, mission accomplished. She gets her script delivered back at home. We get the reveal that, we get her reading the letter, the results of that. But she doesn't win the contest. I don't think a 500-page script, really stood a chance, realistically. But it is
a 7-part film.
Yes, epic. It's a true epic, and time traveling and all of these pieces. But
she wrote a miniseries.
But she gets a letter from her sister, from Audrey, that her niece wants to see Wendy. So we get that. Right. Audrey sees that Wendy is capable of being responsible and being independent. And we get that reconnection of the family. So it's, the Star Trek script thing is it's that MacGuffin to really just initiate the journey, Wendy's journey to overcome barriers, to see that she can be, self-reliant to a certain extent, some lessons that she learns, clearly can't always trust everybody, all of those things. And ends, with me, ends with the family together. And for me, it was just, again, like Peanut Butter Falcon, I don't see enough movies like this where it is something that is just a rewarding, straightforward drama. Sure, there's some things that aren't quite realistic, but it doesn't feel so melodramatic. We're not, manipulating the audience. It's not the tearjerker. Sure, you may tear up.
I cried a lot.
Sure.
I cried a lot because it was very personal.
But I don't feel emotionally manipulated by this.
No, and not emotionally manipulated, and yet bought in at the same time. So that's why it really works. I think these movies don't get hyped, but there are people that are seeking these kind of movies out there that aren't heavy effects. We've talked about other ones. Was it The Bachelors?
Yes.
We've talked about a number of these movies where they are available. They're just a little bit harder to find. They have great casts. They're good stories. And if we get into the technical aspects here, like you talked about this idea, this editing continuity piece of putting on the sweaters, the oneer when Scotty walks in at the beginning
yes.
when she walks
Yes.
in and goes room to room and around like this. I mean, I was like giggling with how happy I was to see this wonder put on screen for this movie that I didn't know anything about. Like, it was really well done. I have some frustration about the stock footage of LA traffic in it once you get to LA, because I know I've got lots of great shots of LA traffic that I can hook them up with, but and they seemed really like TV done. But regardless, no, I think it was technically a really fun movie to watch too. So these movies are out there, and people just need to go find them. Oh, the Scotty thing I wanted to tell you about. When they first, she doesn't necessarily like being touched. Wendy doesn't like being touched so much. So when Scotty and her have this like ritual where they make a big circle that kind of simulates a hug, and then good morning, Wendy, and Wendy says, good morning, Scotty, and immediately I was like, wait a minute. Is this like a beam me up thing? Are they doing a Star Trek like Scotty thing? But it again, service to the film. But I liked all of that, and I think there's lots of people that I would recommend this movie to. I think when I talk about Trailer Rewind in particular, this is one of those exact kind of movies for Trailer Rewind we talk about. I don't think anyone's going to know about this movie. It only made $10,000 in the U.S., but there are lots of people I know that are searching for a movie that's not a comic book movie, not a sci-fi epic, this kind of thing. That's just a nice drama story that's going to hit you in the feels and put you on an interesting little road trip. So I liked it.
This was one that, again, I was really thrilled that it worked so well that it, again, I started watching it and I was like, where has Dakota Fanning been? Nothing,
her sister is doing more work than her. She is. Well, I see a lot more Elle Fanning than
yes,
Dakota.
I think, Dakota, she's, been doing some TV things, maybe just, toning it down a little bit, because when she was younger, it seemed like she was everywhere, from Charlotte's Web, War of the Worlds, all of that is one of those young child stars that, what is the transition that she makes to an adult? And for me, I was thrilled to see her in this, because one of the other things is just her performance of the little things of talking to people, not making eye contact. Those interactions felt very real and authentic to how people often don't know how to interact. Because you've got people that are just like the ticket agent the second time when she's, trying to get her second bus to LA, and she's got, just her coins left because, she's been
86 cents or $7.52 or something.
Exactly.
Like this,
and it's going to be whatever, 20 something dollars for the ticket. And the guy's like, no, just done. I'm like, dude, you do not need to be that rude. Can you not see this is a person that's struggling to understand and communicate? But, she bypasses the whole thing by, again, hiding with all the luggage, which again,
terribly
unrealistic. But again, I had so much fun with this, and it's just it's really Toni Collette and Dakota Fanning really carrying this film between the two of them as we get even with Scotty, her relationship with her son, who sort of is along for the journey because he happened to have whatever he did at school, we don't know, or he ditched school or something like that. And we see her relationship where she's asking him questions. He's like, Mom, don't try and diagnose me, type of thing. And so her struggles of she's dealing with all these people and the challenges she has just with her own son, to me felt, again, very authentic and realistic in terms of the relationship. So for me, that makes this fit. That's what puts us at the 3.5. Not quite enough at 4, but at a 3.5 because it is thoroughly enjoyable from beginning to end. Moves along, as with any road trip, you get your little sequences. It just keeps the pacing moving along. Didn't feel at any point like checking my watch or where, how much is left in this, where are we going? Because we knew very clearly we had a destination to get to, and one way or another, Wendy was determined to get there. So the other thing I did want to mention, just as with, Peanut Butter Falcon, we talked about that film being recognized for its portrayal of, our main character, Zach, and, actors with, people with, Down syndrome. This film, when it was released or leading up to its release, there was a Prizeo campaign. It's one of those where you can, pay $10 and you sort of get into a sweepstakes, and the prize was, to attend the premiere of the film with Dakota Fanning. But all the funds raised for that supported the Miracle Project, which is a fully inclusive theater, film, and expressive arts program for children, teens, and adults with autism and all abilities. And the Miracle Project focuses on the strengths and abilities inherent in its participants, providing tools to build communication, social skills, job skills, and friendships while developing a unique neurodiverse community. So for me, I'll put a link to the Miracle Project in the show notes, because again, when you touch on subject matter like this, there's always, I'm always very sensitive to how is this connected to this specific community? Because again, when you portray any person from a unique population, what support do you have from that community, or to really accurately represent the challenges?
Well, and you see that's not, and that's maybe why this movie didn't have to make a lot of money, because it's more important that the movie gets made and that they have put the commentary out there. I also saw that one of the executive producers was Mark Cuban.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not like they're looking to recoup the money. They're looking to get this art out there and in the hands of people so they can see it. I wish more people had seen it, and hopefully, as a result of this podcast, more people will go and give it a try.
Well, yeah, it's Hulu and Canopy, or if those aren't available to you, it's one that I would say is definitely worth renting, because it is.
I rented it on
okay.
Hulu. Yeah,
something that, again, I think it's with this one. I think more so than Peanut Butter Falcon, this is one you can really sit down and enjoy with the family, because there's not as much sort of fraught, tense drama, and
there's not edgy.
You don't get the dark edginess that we had in Peanut Butter Falcon.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and Peanut Butter Falcon is great. I like this one more, though, to be honest. This one was a bigger fan of it, and I knew less about this than Peanut Butter Falcon going in. So that's kind of fun too.
JJ, as always, it's been a pleasure having a conversation with you about an entertaining find out there in the vast collection of films available on streaming services.
Thanks. I loved it. This was a great fun.
All right. Well, we'll see I think we're getting into darker territory with the next one, JJ. Uh-oh. So you
covering my eyes.
I will let listeners know you're not going to be alone in this one. We're going to get old Tommy Handsome to join us another time to discuss.
Help me watch it too. We're going to watch it.
There we go. All right. Well, looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you for listening to Trailer Rewind. If anything we said here entertained, educated, or even enraged you, we'd like you to tell people about this podcast. Whatever your listening platform is, please share, rate, or write a short review. It helps other podcast listeners find us. If you enjoy connecting with other film fans, you can become a member of our community on Discord. It's free, and there's always an interesting dialogue or debate to jump into. You can also financially support us on Patreon. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive Discord channels, the opportunity to chat with us live before we record an episode, and the warm feeling you get knowing you are contributing support to the behind-the-scenes resources that help everyone here at the Next Reel family of podcasts. So please join us on Discord or become a Patreon supporter. Either way, we would love to have you be part of our community. Hondo.